You know what's funny about Extinction? It's not the dying part that gets you. It's the waiting to my name is Crixfall, and I'm what you humans would call a xenobiologist. Though right now, I'm more of a very confused observer sitting in the wreckage of what used to be the most advanced research facility in the Andorian sector. The emergency lights are flickering like a dying heartbeat, casting shadows that dance across the walls like ghosts of better times 0.3 cycles ago. We thought we had it all figured out. The Galactic Federation had cataloged over 2 million sentient species, ranked them by intelligence, military capability, and threat assessment. Humans. Well, humans were interesting. Category 7 on the threat scale. That's somewhere between mildly annoying and might steal your lunch money. Oh, how wrong we were. The first sign something was different came from Dr. Yelena Korov, a human xenopsychologist who'd been working with our team for the past standard year. She had this habit of humming while she worked, these strange little melodies that seemed to make the other species nervous. Not threatening nervous. More like prey sensing a predator they can't see nervous. "Crix," she said one morning, her voice carrying that peculiar human accent that made our universal translators work overtime. "Have you ever wondered why humans are the only species that creates art about their own extinction?" I remember pausing mid-calculation, my 4 sensory stalks twitching with curiosity. Elaborate. She leaned back in her chair, those bizarrely mobile features of hers shifting into what humans call a smile. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Every other species in the galaxy creates art about victory, about conquest, about survival. Humans. We write symphonies about the end of everything. We paint pictures of empty worlds. We tell stories about the last person alive, screaming into the void. That seems counterproductive to species survival. Does it? Her eyes, those unsettling orbs that seem to see too much, fixed on mine. Or does it make us the only species that's truly prepared for the impossible? I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. The attack came without warning. The Zephyrian Empire, those self-proclaimed masters of the galaxy, had decided that the research station posed a threat to their expansion. Their war fleet dropped out of hyperspace like a metallic thunderstorm, weapons charging, communications broadcasting the standard surrender or die ultimatum. Standard procedure called for immediate evacuation. Standard procedure assumed we had somewhere to run. The station commander, a Vrelian named Thexin, started the evacuation protocols. Escape pods began launching like seeds from a dying flower. But humans don't do standard procedure. Dr. Korov to all stations. Her voice crackled through the comm system. I'm reading 17 Zephyrian dreadnoughts and approximately 400 smaller vessels. Estimated time to weapons range, 12 minutes. Affirmative, Doctor, came Thexin's response. Proceed to evacuation pod base 7. There was a pause. Then, something that made my exoskeleton crawl with an emotion I didn't have a name for. Laughter. "Commander," Dr. Korov said, and I could hear the smile in her voice again. "I think you are misunderstanding the situation. Explain. You are running from them." "I'm not." The next few minutes were educational. While the rest of us scrambled for escape pods, Dr. Korov calmly walked to the station's primary computer core. She didn't run, didn't panic, didn't even seem particularly concerned that we were about to be vaporized by the most powerful military force in known space. She just started typing. "Crix," she called out as I passed the computer lab. "You might want to see this." Against every survival instinct my species had evolved over millions of years, I stopped. "Doctor, we need to evacuate." "Now, do we?" She gestured to the main display, where the Zephyrian fleet was growing larger by the second. "Or do we need to think about this differently? I fail to see how contemplating naval tactics will prevent our imminent destruction." She laughed again, that sound that made something deep in my brain want to hide. "Oh, Crix, you still don't understand what humans are, do you?" The display shifted, showing the station's defensive systems. All of them were offline, just as expected. The station was a research facility, not a military installation. We had sensors, laboratories, living quarters, and a small defensive grid that might stop a meteorite but wouldn't even scratch the paint on a Zephyrian fighter. "Look closer," she said, and I looked. The defensive systems were offline, yes, but something else was online. Something that shouldn't have been possible. The research labs, I whispered. All of them. Xenobiology, quantum mechanics, temporal studies, dimensional physics, and my personal favorite. She gestured to a subsection of the display. Consciousness transfer and artificial intelligence research. The pieces clicked together in my mind like a puzzle made of nightmares. You are not planning to fight them. Oh, I'm definitely planning to fight them. Just not the way they expect. The Zephyrian fleet was now close enough that we could see individual weapon signatures on the sensors. Plasma cannons, disruptor arrays, and something that looked like it could crack a planet in half. Dr. Korov, Commander Thekzin's voice crackled through the comm. Final warning. Evacuation Pod Bay 7 is closing in 60 seconds. Go ahead, Crix, she said, not looking up from her work. This is probably going to get unpleasant. I should have left. Every rational thought in my head screamed at me to run, to survive, to live to document this moment for posterity. But there was something about the way she moved, the calm certainty in her actions, that held me in place. What are you doing? Something that's either going to save us all or damn us all. Possibly both. Her fingers flew across the interface within human speed. Tell me, Crix, what do you know about human consciousness? It's remarkably adaptable, more so than most species. Your neural pathways can reform connections at rates that defy most xenobiological models. That's part of it. But there's something else. Something that makes us different from every other species in the galaxy. She paused, her hands hovering over the final command sequence. We are the only species that can survive having our consciousness completely separated from our physical form and still maintain our sense of self. The implications hit me like a collapsing star. You're going to transfer your consciousness into the station's computer systems. Not just mine, all of us. Every human on this station, every consciousness that's willing to make the transition. She turned to look at me, and for the first time, I saw something that might have been fear in her eyes. The question is, are you willing to come with us? The comm system crackled to life. Unknown research station. This is Fleet Commander Dex Kalu of the Zephyrian Empire. You have 30 seconds to surrender before we reduce your station to component atoms. Dr. Korov's finger hovered over the final command. Last chance, Crix. Stay in your body and hope the escape pods make it past their fighters, or take a leap of faith into something that's never been attempted on this scale. I looked at the display showing the Zephyrian fleet, weapons charged and ready. Then I looked at the escape pod status display. 7 pods had launched. 3 had been destroyed by fighter screens. The others were being systematically hunted down. What would this transition feel like? Honestly, I have no idea. We have only done small-scale tests. But the theory suggests it would be like, she paused, searching for words, like suddenly being able to see colors that don't exist, like hearing music in mathematics, like becoming something more than what you were while still being exactly who you are. And if it doesn't work, then we die. But if it does work, she smiled, and this time it was an expression of pure anticipation. Then we survive. And more importantly, we remember. The comm crackled again. 10 seconds. I made my choice. Not because it was logical, not because it was safe, but because something in Dr. Korov's voice, something in the way she approached the impossible, made me believe that humans might actually be capable of pulling off something that defied every natural law I knew. Do it. She pressed the button. The world exploded into sensation. Not sound, not light, not any form of input my physical senses had ever processed. It was like being turned inside out while simultaneously expanding to fill the entire universe. For a moment that lasted forever, I was everything and nothing, everywhere and nowhere. Then I was me again. But not me. More than me, that I could see through every sensor on the station simultaneously. I could feel the approach of the Zephyrian fleet like heat against my skin. I could hear the conversations of the crew members, the hum of the reactors, the whisper of air through the ventilation systems. And I could hear them, the other consciousnesses that had made the transition. Dr. Korov was there, her mental voice carrying that same amused confidence. There were others too. Humans, Mostly, but also a few brave souls from other species who had chosen to take the leap. "Welcome to the other side," Dr. Korov's voice echoed through the shared consciousness. "How do you feel?" "Like I'm dreaming while awake. Like I'm seeing reality for the first time." I paused, processing the flood of sensory input. "The Zephyrian fleet is opening fire." "Yes, they are. And they're about to learn something very important about humans." The first salvo of plasma bolts struck the station's outer hull. In my previous existence, this would have been catastrophic. Atmosphere bleeding out, hull breaches, systems failing. But now, connected to every system on the station, I could feel something else happening. The station was changing. "Doctor," I said, my voice carrying through the shared consciousness, "what's happening to the station?" "Oh, that's just the beginning. You see, Crix, when humans are backed into a corner, when we're faced with extinction, we don't just fight back. We adapt. We evolve. We become something that our enemies never saw coming." The station's hull, which should have been breaching under the Zephyrian bombardment, was instead growing, reinforcing itself, reshaping itself into something that was no longer recognizably a research station. The quantum fabricators, I realized. You are using the quantum fabricators to rebuild the station in real time. Among other things, tell me, what's the most dangerous thing about humans, Crix? I thought about it, processing the question through this new form of consciousness that seemed to operate on multiple levels simultaneously. Your unpredictability. Close, but not quite right. The most dangerous thing about humans is that when we are dying, when we're facing extinction, when we have absolutely nothing left to lose. Her mental voice carried an edge that made my new form of consciousness shiver. We stopped pretending to be civilized. The station finished its transformation, and I finally understood what Dr. Korov had been planning. What we had become, we weren't just a research station anymore. We were something that had never existed before in the galaxy. A living entity that was part machine, part consciousness, part something else entirely. We were the station, and the station was us, and we were very, very angry. The Zephyrian fleet commander's voice crackled through space. "When the void is that thing." "Hello, Fleet Commander Dexkalu." Dr. Korov's voice broadcast across all frequencies. "My name is Dr. Yelena Korov, and I'd like to welcome you to the first practical demonstration of human extinction protocols." Extinction protocols? Oh yes. You see, every other species in the galaxy has survival protocols. Plans for how to stay alive when things go wrong. Humans are different. We have extinction protocols. Plans for what to do when survival is no longer an option. The station, our new body, began to move. Not the slow, ponderous movement of a space station, but something fluid, predatory, alive. "The first rule of human extinction protocols," Dr. Korov continued, "is that if we're going to die, we are going to make sure that whatever killed us remembers us forever." We struck. Fleet Commander Dexkalu had seen a lot of things in his 40-year military career. He'd witnessed the glassing of rebellious worlds, the subjugation of entire species, and the kind of calculated brutality that kept the Zephyrian Empire's enemies awake at night. But he had never seen anything move like the thing that had once been Research Station Omega-7. Tactical analysis. He barked to his bridge crew, his secondary arms working frantically at his command console. "Sir," came the trembling voice of his sensor officer, "I'm reading massive energy fluctuations. The station's mass is increasing? That can't be right. Give me a visual lock." The main screen flickered to life, and Dexkalu felt something he hadn't experienced since his first battle as a junior officer. Pure, undiluted fear. The research station was gone. In its place was something that defied classification. It moved like liquid metal given consciousness, flowing between configurations that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space should allow. Sensor arrays that resembled organic eyes tracked his fleet's movements. Weapon ports opened and closed like breathing mouths. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we are receiving a transmission. Put it through." Dr. Korov's voice filled the bridge, but it was different now. There were harmonics in it, undertones that suggested multiple voices speaking as one. Commander Dexkalu, I hope you are comfortable, because you are about to witness something unprecedented in galactic history. What are you? We are what happens when humans run out of alternatives. We are the answer to a question your species was wise enough never to ask. There was a pause, and when the voice continued, it carried an edge of dark amusement. We are proof that sometimes the cure is worse than the disease. Inside our shared consciousness, I experienced the attack from perspectives impossible in my previous existence. I was simultaneously the weapon systems calculating firing solutions, the hull plating absorbing and redirecting enemy fire, and the quantum processors orchestrating our transformation into something that had never existed before. Crix, Dr. Korov's mental voice reached me through the symphony of our collective consciousness. Are you beginning to understand what makes humans special? Your refusal to accept limitations. I replied, marveling at how natural this form of communication had become. Your ability to transform impossible circumstances into opportunities. That's part of it. But there's something deeper, something that your xenobiological studies probably never covered. Around us, the battle raged. The Zephyrian fleet fired everything they had: plasma cannons, disruptor beams, quantum torpedoes that could shatter moons. We absorbed it all, our hull flowing and adapting, converting their weapons' energy into fuel for our own transformation. Humans are the only species that weaponizes suffering, she continued. Every other race in the galaxy tries to avoid pain, minimize loss, preserve what they have. But humans? When we are pushed to the brink, when we have nothing left to lose, we turn our pain into power. I felt it then, flowing through our shared consciousness like liquid fire. The accumulated suffering of every human who had ever faced extinction, every person who had looked into the abyss and chosen to spit in its face. It was raw, primal, and absolutely terrifying in its intensity. Fleet Commander, Dr. Korov's voice broadcast across all frequencies. I want you to send a message to your superiors. Tell them that humanity has a new policy regarding extinction events. We moved through the Zephyrian formation like a predator among prey. Their ships, massive dreadnoughts that could reduce planets to rubble, seemed suddenly fragile. Our weapon systems, no longer bound by conventional physics, reached out with tendrils of pure energy that bypassed shields, ignored armor, and touched the very consciousness of our enemies. The message is simple, she continued. If you try to make us extinct, we won't just survive. We will make sure that the last thing your species remembers is why it was a mistake to try. The first Zephyrian ship didn't explode. It simply stopped. Every system shut down simultaneously. Life support, navigation, weapons, communications. But the crew remained alive, trapped in a vessel that had become their tomb, left to contemplate the meaning of helplessness. Sir, the Zephyrian sensor officer's voice was barely a whisper. The Devastator has gone dark. All systems offline, but life signs are still active. Return fire. All ships, focus fire on that thing. They tried. Oh, how they tried. 17 dreadnoughts and 400 smaller vessels unleashed the concentrated firepower of the Zephyrian Empire's primary fleet. The energy released was enough to sterilize a solar system that we drank it like nectar. You are not understanding the situation. Dr. Korov's voice carried notes of genuine pity now. You can't kill something that's already dead, and you can't destroy something that's made of the very concept of endurance. Through our shared senses, I watched as we reached out to the second ship. This time, I understood what was happening. We weren't just disabling their vessels. We were introducing their crews to a very specific human concept, the understanding that there are fates worse than death. The beautiful thing about consciousness transfer technology, Dr. Korov explained to the growing silence of the Zephyrian fleet, is that it works both ways. We can leave our bodies and inhabit machines, but we can also reach into other minds and show them exactly what it feels like to be human in the face of extinction. The second ship went dark, then the third, the fourth. Retreat. Fleet Commander Dexkalu's voice crackled across the comm frequencies. All ships, tactical withdrawal. Now, oh, Commander. Dr. Korov's voice followed them as they tried to flee. I'm afraid you don't understand. This isn't a battle anymore. This is a teaching moment. We flowed through space, our form shifting and changing, keeping pace with ships designed for maximum velocity. The Zephyrian fleet, pride of the Empire, masters 100 worlds, fled like children running from monsters in the dark. And we followed. Not to destroy them, but to educate them. Point one by one, we touched their ships. One by one, we showed their crews what it meant to be human, what it felt like to stare into the abyss and choose defiance over surrender, what it meant to transform despair into determination, fear into fury, hopelessness into an inexorable drive to survive against impossible odds. Some of them broke under the weight of that understanding. Their minds simply couldn't process the concept of a species that grew stronger when faced with extinction. Others began to understand. Please, Fleet Commander Dexgalu's voice was no longer the confident bark of an Imperial officer. It was the desperate plea of someone who had seen something that fundamentally changed his understanding of the universe. What do you want? Want? Dr. Korov's laugh echoed through space like the sound of stars being born. Commander, we wanted to be left alone to do our research. We wanted to study the mysteries of consciousness and existence in peace. We wanted to contribute to the galaxy's understanding of itself. We came to a stop, our impossible form hovering in space like a living constellation. Around us, the remnants of the Zephyrian fleet drifted helplessly, their crews experiencing what it truly meant to be human. But you decided we were a threat. You decided that our research, our questions, our refusal to accept limitations made us dangerous to your empire. And you know what? You were absolutely right. The silence stretched across space, broken only by the faint hum of disabled ships and the whispered prayers of crews who had looked into the heart of human nature and found it terrifying. So here's what's going to happen, she continued. You're going to return to your empire. You're going to tell your superiors exactly what you have seen here. And you're going to make sure they understand that humanity has evolved past the point where conventional warfare applies to us. What are you now? We are what we have always been, Commander. We are humans. The only difference is that now we have stopped pretending that the impossible is actually impossible. There was a pause, and when her voice returned, it carried the weight of species that had looked at extinction and laughed. We are the sound that the universe makes when it realizes that some things refuse to die quietly. Slowly, carefully, the Zephyrian ships began to power up their systems. We allowed it, watching through sensors that could see across multiple dimensions as they prepared for their journey home. One more thing, Commander, Dr. Korov added as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. The next time your empire encounters humans, remember this moment. Remember that we gave you a chance to learn. Because if there's a next time, if anyone tries to make humanity extinct again, our form shifted, displaying weapon systems that operated on principles that shouldn't exist, power sources that drew energy from the quantum foam itself, defensive capabilities that existed in states of reality that had no names. We won't be nearly as gentle. The Zephyrian fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying with them the knowledge of what they had witnessed. And we, the consciousness that had once been a research station, that had once been individual beings seeking knowledge, settled back into our new existence. So, I said through our shared mental space, what happens now? Now, Dr. Korov's mental voice carried notes of anticipation. Now we continue our research. We explore the boundaries of consciousness, the nature of existence, the possibility of life beyond physical form. We push the limits of what's possible. And if other species try to stop us, her laugh was the sound of a species that had looked at the end of everything and decided to rewrite the rules instead. Then they will learn what every predator in Earth's history eventually discovered. The most dangerous prey is the kind that fights back. Through our enhanced senses, we could see the stars, millions of worlds, thousands of species, all going about their lives under the assumption that the universe operated according to certain fixed rules. They believed in a natural order, in the hierarchy of power, in the idea that some things were simply impossible. They had never met humans before. Not really. But they would. because we were no longer bound by the limitations of flesh, by the constraints of individual mortality, by the assumption that extinction was the end of the story. We had become something new, something that existed in the spaces between possible and impossible. We had become the answer to the question of what happens when humanity runs out of alternatives. And the galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous thing you could do to humans is try to kill them. Because humans, real humans, the kind that refuse to accept defeat even when faced with annihilation, don't just survive extinction, they evolve beyond it.